The Xylosian Hegemony had always considered Earth a quaint, if somewhat troublesome, backwater. For centuries, their vast intelligence network had meticulously catalogued every species, every nascent civilization, every potential threat. Humanity, with its chaotic history of internal conflicts and its relatively primitive spacefaring technology, was filed under low-priority potential client state. Their planetary defense grid, the so-called Aegis, was noted as a curious, if ultimately inefficient, collection of kinetic barriers and energy projectors. A charming, if ultimately futile, gesture of defiance. Grand Admiral Xylar, commander of the Hegemony's punitive fleet, reviewed the intelligence reports with a dismissive flick of his primary manipulator. "Their Aegis is a patchwork," he declared to his bridge crew, his voice resonating with the calm certainty of absolute power. "A collection of disparate systems, cobbled together without a unified design philosophy. Their energy shields are rudimentary, their kinetic defenses evilly overwhelmed. We anticipate minimal resistance." His tactical officer, a meticulous being named Unit 7 Gamma, nodded in agreement, displaying a holographic projection of Earth's defense grid, highlighting its numerous vulnerabilities. "Indeed, Admiral. Our simulations predict a full breach within 0.7 cycles. The Hegemony's fleet, a glittering armada of 200 warships, materialized at the edge of the Sol system. Their vessels, sleek and perfectly symmetrical, reflected the Xylosian dedication to order and efficiency. They were the pinnacle of galactic engineering, designed to project overwhelming force with surgical precision. This was not a war, it was a demonstration. A lesson in galactic hierarchy for a species that had dared to ignore their subtle overtures of assimilation." As the Xylosian fleet advanced, Earth's Aegis defense grid flared to life. Thousands of energy turrets, kinetic railguns, and missile silos, orbiting Earth and positioned on its moon, began to fire. It was a dazzling, if somewhat uncoordinated, display of firepower. The Xylosian ships, their advanced shields shimmering, absorbed the initial barrages with ease. "As expected," Xylar observed, a hint of boredom in his tone. "Their energy output is erratic. Their targeting solutions are primitive. They are wasting ammunition." Unit 7 Gamma even allowed itself a faint, almost imperceptible chuckle. "Their kinetic projectiles are easily deflected, Admiral. We are registering less than 0.01% shield degradation." It was going exactly as planned. The humans were fighting with passion, but without logic. The predictable, and therefore easily defeated, enemy. Wave after wave of Xylosian fighters and bombers surged forward, weaving through the human defenses. Their precision strikes targeted key Aegis nodes, systematically dismantling the grid. Orbital platforms exploded, energy conduits overloaded, and communication relays went silent. The humans fought with a desperate ferocity, but it was a losing battle. Their ships, few in number, were outmaneuvered and outgunned. "The Aegis is collapsing," Unit 7 Gamma reported, its voice devoid of emotion, merely stating facts. "Defense integrity at 40% and falling. Planetary bombardment solutions are now viable." Xylar permitted himself a small, satisfied hum. "Excellent. Prepare for final approach. Let this be a lesson to all who defy the hegemony." But then, something shifted. As the Xylosian fleet pressed its advantage, a subtle, almost imperceptible change began to ripple through the remaining Aegis platforms. The erratic energy signatures began to stabilize. The disparate systems, once operating independently, now seemed to move with a synchronized purpose. It was as if the entire defense grid had suddenly learned. A Xylosian heavy cruiser, the harbinger of order, launched a volley of plasma torpedoes at a human orbital defense station. The station's shields, previously flickering, flared with a sudden, impossible intensity, not just deflecting the torpedoes, but absorbing their energy. The Xylosian tactical display registered a massive, inexplicable energy spike from the human station. "Anomaly detected!" Unit 7 Gamma exclaimed, its voice betraying a flicker of surprise. "Energy absorption beyond predicted parameters. The station's shield output has increased by 300%. Xylar frowned. "A localized power surge? Unlikely. Continue the assault." But it wasn't localized. Across the entire Aegis grid, the same phenomenon began to occur. Human energy shields, once easily overwhelmed, now pulsed with a newfound strength, deflecting attacks that should have vaporized them. Kinetic barriers, previously brittle, now shimmered with an almost liquid resilience, absorbing impacts and redirecting the force. The Xylosian pilots, accustomed to predictable targets, found their precision strikes suddenly ineffective. Their advanced targeting systems, designed to exploit known weaknesses, were now spitting out error messages. "Admiral, their shield harmonics are shifting," a Xylosian comms officer reported, his voice tinged with confusion. "They're adapting to our weapon frequencies in real time. We can't get a lock." Xylar stared at the main view screen, his multiple eyes narrowing. This was not in the simulations. This was not logical. "What is this sorcery?" he demanded. "Are they employing some unknown counter-frequency emitter?" Unit 7 Gamma, usually unflappable, was frantically recalibrating its data slates. "Negative, Admiral. No external emitters detected. It appears to be internal. As if the Aegis itself is reconfiguring its energy fields in response to our attacks. It's learning." "Learning?" Xylar scoffed. "A defense grid does not learn. It executes programmed protocols." But the Aegis was learning, and it was adapting, and then it activated the ancient protocol. Deep within the core of the primary Aegis station, a dormant system, untouched for centuries, hummed to life. It wasn't a weapon, not a shield, but a computational nexus, a quantum-entangled network that linked every single component of the defense grid, from the smallest drone to the largest orbital platform. It was the true brain of the Aegis, designed not just to defend, but to evolve. The Xylosians watched in growing horror as the human defense grid, previously a collection of scattered lights, began to coalesce. Individual platforms, once isolated, now moved in perfect, synchronized patterns, anticipating Xylosian maneuvers before they were even executed. Energy projectors, previously firing simple bolts, now unleashed complex, multi-frequency beams that bypassed Xylosian shields with alarming regularity. Kinetic railguns, once firing single slugs, now launched volleys of smart projectiles that tracked and overwhelmed their targets. "Admiral, they're predicting our jump points!" a navigation officer cried out. "Their interceptors are waiting for us before we even exit warp!" "Their missile trajectories are adjusting mid-flight," another shouted. "They're targeting our weakest shield points with impossible accuracy." Xylar felt a cold, unfamiliar sensation. Fear. This was not the primitive species they had studied. This was something else entirely. The Aegis wasn't just defending, it was hunting. It was dissecting their tactics, analyzing their weaknesses, and then creating bespoke countermeasures in milliseconds. It was like fighting a sentient, planet-sized predator. The Xylosian fleet, once so confident, began to falter. Their perfectly ordered formations dissolved into chaos as ships desperately tried to evade the relentless, adaptive assault. A Xylosian destroyer, its shields at full power, found itself suddenly bombarded by a volley of plasma that seemed to phase directly through its defenses, vaporizing its bridge. A heavy cruiser, attempting a tactical retreat, found its FTL drive overloaded by a precisely timed energy pulse from a human orbital platform, leaving it dead in the water. "They're using our own energy signatures against us!" Unit 7 Gamma shrieked, its logical processes breaking down under the impossible data. "Their repair drones are repurposing our own weapon fragments to create new defensive layers. This is illogical! It defies all known engineering principles!" The Xylosians' meticulous data slates began to smoke. Xylar watched as his fleet, the pride of the hegemony, was systematically dismantled. The Aegis, once dismissed as weak, was now a living, breathing, evolving entity of destruction. It wasn't just reacting, it was anticipating. It wasn't just defending, it was dominating. The humans weren't just fighting, they were teaching the Xylosians a very painful, very expensive lesson. "Admiral, the ironclad is lost. The vanguard is crippled. We are taking catastrophic losses." Xylar slammed his manipulator onto his console. "Order a full retreat. All ships disengage and jump to rally point Gamma 7. This is no longer a punitive expedition. It is a rout." His voice, once calm and authoritative, was now laced with a raw, primal terror. The Xylosian hegemony had never retreated. Not like this. The Xylosian fleet, broken and demoralized, limped away from the Sol system, leaving behind a graveyard of shattered vessels and shattered pride. The Aegis, its job done, slowly powered down, its platforms returning to their silent, watchful vigil. It had defended its home not with brute force, but with an adaptability and ingenuity that the galaxy had never before witnessed. The news of the Xylosian defeat spread like wildfire across the galaxy. The hegemony, once considered invincible, had been humiliated by a species they deemed primitive. The implications were staggering. If Earth, with its weak defenses, could repel the Xylosian fleet, what did that say about the true power of humanity? Grand Admiral Xylar, upon his return, faced a tribunal. His report, detailing the sentient defense grid and its illogical adaptive capabilities, was met with skepticism, then disbelief, and finally a chilling realization. The Xylosian High Council reviewed the combat data, their own algorithms struggling to comprehend the impossible. One elder counselor, a being who had seen countless species rise and fall, simply stared at the holographic projection of the Aegis's final, devastating counterattack. "They did not build a defense," he whispered, his voice trembling. "They built a living weapon, a weapon that learns, a weapon that evolves." The galaxy had always viewed humanity through the lens of their own limited understanding. They saw chaos where there was adaptability, emotion where there was intuition, and weakness where there was an untapped, terrifying potential. They thought Earth's defense line was weak. They thought humanity was just another species to be categorized and controlled. They were wrong. The Aegis wasn't just a defense grid. It was a testament to humanity's relentless will to survive, to innovate, to adapt beyond all expectations. It was a silent guardian, a technological marvel that had been underestimated, dismissed, and then, in its moment of truth, had activated its ancient protocol, shattering galactic arrogance and rewriting the rules of engagement. The galaxy would never look at Earth the same way again. And somewhere, a Xylosian comedy holo series about bumbling humans was abruptly cancelled. It just wasn't funny anymore.